Welcome everyone to the Merdeka Award Roundtable. I am your host, Bettina Khan, and it is my honor and privilege to be a part of this series of talk shows. These discussions provide a forum where we can listen to the ideas and experiences that could make our nation more dynamic, more competitive, more innovative, and more resilient within the context of international competitiveness. With me today are Senator Dato Sri Idris Jala. He is the CEO of PEMANDU, which oversees the implementation and monitors the progress of Malaysia's economic development models, known as the GTP and the ETP. And he is, of course, well placed to discuss the theme for today's roundtable, which is building a globally competitive Malaysia. Oliver Tonby of McKinsey Co. is also with us, and he has vast experience in helping leaders of both governments and businesses from around this region understand the forces shaping the changing global economy and devising transformation programs that can meet those challenges. Both of them are joined by Merdeka Award recipient Dato Dr. Kenneth Yeang, who was honoured last year for his outstanding contribution in the field of ecological design and planning of the built environment. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you here with us today. Let's start with this idea of measuring global competitiveness. The sort of benchmark that's used is provided by the World Economic Forum in the form of the Global Competitiveness Index. And last year we actually leapfrogged. We went from 26 to 21, which of course the first thing that people say is, oh, well, you know, where are we in comparison with other people? I'm not so sure that's always the question. What do you think, Dr. Sri? I mean, it's an exciting topic.
Yeah, it's a good topic. The ranking that they produce there is a perception ranking, and it helps to look at that. So we have moved from number 26 to number 21, but more importantly, you've got to look at the substantive improvements.
Such
to me,
as?
Example is investments. So last year, for example, our foreign direct investment into the country, we've reached the highest figures we've had in 10 years. And the total private investment altogether grew at 19.4% in 1 year. So investors don't come and pour money into a country until and unless it's attractive for them to come and put the money in our country. And so that, I think, is a very important indication. The other one is trade. Our trade grew to one of the highest numbers we've had in our history. We've reached total trade to 1.27 trillion last year, ringgit.
Well, we have a very efficient,
very good
services
So
economy.
That means if your trade is growing, we continue to grow. Our GDP, highest in our history was last year. The highest GNI in our history was last year. The highest in 10 years in terms of investment was last year, both domestic investment as well as foreign investment. And so it augurs well. So I'm not surprised that, you know, the perception ranking that came out from the World Economic Forum showed that we've leapt from number 26 to number 21.
But then, you know, Oliver, maybe you want to jump in here. We're not the only ones improving. Other countries also make improvements. They make substantive improvements, perhaps not in the same areas we did. But, you know, they also move up the scale. So when you look at global competitiveness, whether it's for a company or whether it's for a country, don't you also consider the pace at which you improve?
Absolutely. I think this is a central point. And if you don't mind, Bettina, just spending two words on why is this global competitiveness ranking very relevant. What's happening right now is, you know, the world economy has been turned upside down in the last couple of years almost. Why do I say that? You have ongoing financial crisis right now in the Eurozone. This leads to lots of uncertainty for private companies here, uncertainties for the government. You have a rebalancing from the west to the east, into China, India, ASEAN, and we see that in the trade numbers for Malaysia. US has gone from 20%, I think, in 2005 or so to 9% now, if the numbers I read are correct. All this means that there is a tremendous amount of competition going on. There's competition between countries, competition for investment, competition for talent. If we get this, if Malaysia gets this right, you know, it means more jobs. It means more modern jobs, high-value jobs, which I think is one of the things the government would like to see.
What do you think, Ken?
Well, I think one of the best indicators is the extent of what we're doing internationally. Maybe about 10, 15 years ago, maybe about 10, 15% of our work is international work. But right now, it's about 40%. So I think that's an indication that Malaysian architects, not just myself per se, but a very large number of Malaysian architects are doing work internationally.
And I suppose that's very encouraging, isn't it? It's encouraging because then you get onto this sort of momentum and this wave and this trend, and then companies like yours possibly invest more, thereby growing the economy. But then on the flip side, Dato, I think it was actually within your ATP annual report where you said this year is the year where we have had all these plans and we've launched all these programs, but this is the year we execute. So yes, you have a momentum going, but you also have a lot of maybe unfinished business. So in light of what Oliver's just said, do we want to just scale back and pull the reins a little bit on where we're going? No.
I mean, let me follow on what Ken had mentioned. Architecture.
Right.
We've begun already to announce the liberalization of architectural sector. Now all foreign architects can come and operate in Malaysia. Why have we decided to do that? As an example, it's simply because we think Malaysian architects are good enough to compete internationally. And so therefore, and if they're not good enough, they will find it very tough internally too, because the foreign architects who come here will challenge them. And so we've done that in 17 subsectors. We've opened the door to quite a lot, including engineering and including many others, accountants, and that liberalization is important because they create the conditions for competitiveness to flourish. Now, returning to
I'm afraid that's not a two-way process. The American architects come in here now, but it's extremely difficult for us to go there.
Absolutely.
The simple reason is this, that there is a perception of third world about Malaysia. Like it or not, I was at a conference.
We have these very tall towers, and we still have a perception of being
but the tall towers are not designed by Malaysian architects. Right? Look at KLCC here. None of the towers or projects here are designed by a local architect. But
So you're saying actually, yes, we can, on our part, liberalize our sectors and invite people in, and that will have the effects that you are looking for.
I think what Ken is saying is that a lot of countries enter into what's called bilateral arrangement negotiations. And sometimes the negotiations are between sectors. They trade in one for another. And so when you look at the myriads of bilateral negotiations between countries, it's not always between one item versus another item, because they're contrived within various sectors.
That's right,
so only when you look at what makes sense between countries, then you can say, okay, why did they agree a certain thing for another country? Now, returning back to the point that you've said before, I'm absolutely convinced that last year was a very good year for us in terms of implementing the ETP. We had a great year, and we met most of the targets that we set out in terms of investment numbers, gross national income numbers, but we have a long way to go in terms of creating the conditions for competitiveness to flourish.
Well, let me just jump in here and do that, because I kind of want to pick up from what you're talking about, architecture and architects coming in. So we could liberalize the sector.
We already have.
Are we, in many different areas, are we ready? So we can liberalize the sector, but what is it about us right now that makes them want to come, that makes an architectural firm, taking your example of the KLCC, Cesar Pelli, wants to set up his office here when and look for work here, which is not a commission-based work. There must be several ingredients that we have stewing in this pot to make it a dish that people say, well, I want to go and have a little bit of that.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems is really what I call the Gucci syndrome.
The what syndrome?
Right, a Gucci syndrome.
A Gucci syndrome.
Right. Because we're a post-colonial country. For many years under British rule, we were made to feel that anything that's not British is better, it's not as good as being British. So a lot of Malaysian clients employ foreign architects because they think the foreign goods are better than, than local ones. Now this doesn't do much of a local confidence. So I think the client bodies today should actually employ more local architects instead of going out to buy the foreign architects. So I call this a Gucci syndrome because they think a Gucci bag is better than anything else, whereas a Gucci bag is actually made in Thailand, or And I think the local product is good as any, better than most.
That plays into the ideas of, which we'll talk about a little bit more, of innovation and creativity and developing the kinds of people who can produce the Gucci equivalent of a Malaysian bag, something that is as good as that.
If you don't mind, but I just wanted to pick up on one thing which I think is important, which is that we talked about the architect industry or sector.
Yes.
You said 17 sectors, if I understand. One of the important things, I think, is to focus. Malaysia will not be world champion in all sectors, right? So I think the idea here would be to pick some sectors and focus on those. There are already several sectors where Malaysia is very, very strong, and competing globally. Palm oil is an obvious one, right? Where you have a whole ecosystem that is competing globally. Oil and gas, tourism is coming, right? Financials.
I want to add to what he's saying.
I think I need to take this to a commercial break so that the show can earn some money from advertising. So we will be right back after this break and pick up on the discussion. You're watching Merdeka Award Roundtable.